They told me there wasn't enough space for me at the family retreat. Then they invited 118 people. What I did next destroyed them all. My name is Sage Bennett, I'm 26 years old, and I still can't believe what my own family drove me to do. This story haunts me because sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who cut the deepest. And sometimes, when you finally fight back, you realize you've been holding a loaded weapon all along. I found out about their betrayal at a dinner party. Just a casual Friday night with friends, wine flowing, everyone sharing weekend plans. That's when my friend Riley casually mentioned seeing photos from my family's retreat. "Looked incredible," she said, scrolling through her phone. "Your sister posted the cutest drone shot." My blood turned to ice water. "What retreat?" Riley's face shifted as she realized something was wrong. She turned her phone toward me, and there it was. A sprawling lakeside resort. 118 people arranged in perfect rows, all wearing matching t-shirts with a banner that read 2025 Annual Silverton Family Retreat. I recognized every face. My parents front and center, beaming. All 6 of my siblings with their partners and kids. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Even distant in-laws. There was a color scheme. Professional photography. Someone had made laminated name tags. Everyone except me. I excused myself to the bathroom and locked the door. My hands shook as I opened Instagram. The photos were everywhere. Lakeside brunches. Campfire sing-alongs. My brothers carrying toddlers. My sisters in coordinated sundresses. My parents slow dancing under string lights. Someone had even created a hashtag. #retreat to reconnect. That's when I remembered the phone call from 3 weeks earlier. I'd asked my mom if we were doing the annual retreat this year. "We're keeping it small," she'd said breezily. "Not enough space for everyone." Not enough space. Right. I scrolled through 47 photos of their small gathering. 118 people. A group shot where my absence screamed louder than everyone's presence combined. This wasn't the first time. When I was 12, there was a cousin's birthday party that got too full for me. At 15, I discovered the family had gone to a lake house weekend without putting me on the group message. I'd even helped pack favor bags for one of these retreats once, ironing their stupid matching t-shirts while they planned an event I wasn't invited to attend. The tears came quietly, controlled. I'd learned not to make noise when I cried. In a family of 7 kids, tears were just another performance, and I'd never been good at performing. But something shifted that night. Something cold and calculating settled in my chest. I didn't know it then, but I was 24 hours away from changing everything. See, I'm the 4th of 7 kids. Not the youngest, not the oldest, not even technically the middle child. I'm the median, the forgotten variable in the family equation. My siblings used to joke that I was so forgettable. They once almost left me at a gas station. They remembered before pulling away, so apparently it doesn't count. My family is what you'd call artistically gifted. Everyone sings. Most play instruments. 2 have actual music careers. Family dinners came with harmony arrangements. Talent shows were mandatory. Group performances got uploaded to YouTube with titles like The Silverton 7 Sing Christmas Classics. Except I can't carry a tune in a bucket with handles. I discovered this around age 7 when I joined a birthday song and my older sister, Melody, winced like I'd physically assaulted her ears. "Sage, please," she said. "You're flattening everything." I didn't know what that meant, but the laughter told me enough. It became their running joke. Sage the noise polluter. Sage the vibe killer. My brother Marcus once made a chart ranking all 7 siblings by musical ability. I wasn't on it. The caption read, "Some things can't be measured." I tried to be funny instead. If I couldn't sing, maybe I could make people laugh. But my humor was too dry, too observational for a family that thought slapstick was sophisticated comedy. They coined a term for my failed attempts. Sage-a joke. It meant a joke so unfunny it killed the mood. "That was such a Sage joke," they'd say, even when I wasn't in the room. I asked my mom once if she thought I was funny. She smiled like I'd asked if I had superpowers. You're clever, sweetie. But you're not exactly entertaining. I stopped trying after that. I learned to be quiet, helpful, pleasant. It was easier than constantly failing to measure up. Years later, desperate for some kind of outlet, I started writing down observations. Funny thoughts, mostly. Bits of awkwardness turned into sketches. I didn't think of myself as funny, just someone trying to figure out why nothing ever felt right. Then, on a whim, I tried an open mic night. Nothing major. Tiny venue, bad lighting, a microphone that crackled if you breathed wrong. But when I delivered my first joke, the crowd laughed. Not politely. Not out of pity. Real, surprised laughter. I got addicted immediately. For months, I performed regularly without telling anyone. Real people, real laughs, real validation. It felt like discovering I could fly after being told my whole life I was afraid of heights. Finally, I worked up the courage to tell my family. We were sitting around after dinner, Dad retelling some story for the third time, everyone playing their usual roles. I cleared my throat. So, I've been doing some comedy. They blinked at me like I'd spoken in ancient Greek. Like performing? My younger sister Aria asked, smirking. Stand-up. At a club downtown. Marcus actually laughed out loud. You? On stage? It's not Madison Square Garden, I said. Just sticky floors and expired beer. But yes, a stage. They laughed again. Not cruelly, exactly. More like when someone tells you they're training for NASA at 35. You've never been funny, Mom said gently. But that's sweet. It's good to have hobbies. I wanted to believe they'd change their minds once they saw me perform. Maybe they'd be proud. Maybe the unfunny label would finally get scratched off. I invited them to my next show. Friday night, decent crowd, supportive venue. I wore a new top, rehearsed my set until I could do it in my sleep, and arrived early to save seats. I kept checking the door as people filtered in. The host introduced me. I scanned the crowd one last time as I walked to the microphone. Not a single familiar face. It hit me like a vacuum, like all the oxygen had suddenly decided to be somewhere else. But I smiled, opened with a throwaway line, found my rhythm, and crushed it. People told me afterward they hadn't laughed that hard in months. Someone asked where they could find me online. All I could think about was the empty chair in the third row I'd reserved for Mom. After that, I stopped inviting them. Not out of spite, out of survival. They never asked about my shows again. Occasionally, when discussing my siblings' musical achievements, someone would mention, Sage has her little comedy thing. Like I was knitting scarves for neighborhood cats. I kept performing, kept growing my audience, kept proving to myself that I wasn't the problem. My family was just allergic to my particular brand of truth. Which brings us back to that dinner party. That photo. That moment when I realized they'd rather invite 118 people than make space for their own daughter. I went home, opened my laptop, and stared at a blank document for 20 minutes. Then I started writing. Not my usual material. Something raw. More honest. The next night, I had a set at the Laughing Moon. I was planning to do my regular routine, but when they called my name, I left my notes in my bag and walked on stage with something new. Most comedians, I said into the microphone, get into stand-up because their families laughed at their jokes. I got into it because mine created a category for my failures. The Sage joke. Like a dad joke, but meaner and apparently contagious. The crowd laughed, so I kept going. In my house, if you told a bad joke, it wasn't just a flop. It was a scandal. I should have had my own documentary. The Girl Who Killed Comedy. That got applause. I talked about being the only non-musical kid in a family of performers. How even the toddlers had rhythm while I was basically the designated audience member. The family hype woman minus the hype. Then I delivered the line that changed everything. Last week, my parents told me there wasn't enough space for me at our annual family retreat. Then they invited 118 people. The crowd erupted. Full-belly laughs mixed with gasps of disbelief. So yeah, I guess there wasn't enough space. Not at the resort. Just in their idea of who belongs. I got a standing ovation, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like I'd just pulled out a splinter that had been festering for years. It hurt, but I could finally breathe. The next morning at 7:03 a.m., my phone exploded. Mom's name on the screen. I let it ring. Then again. And again. On the fifth call, I picked up out of morbid curiosity. She didn't say hello. She went straight to screaming. How dare you? Someone saw your little show. They told us what you said. You humiliated us. Not, are you okay? Not, let's talk about this. Just fury. It was a 10-minute set, I said calmly. I didn't name names. You didn't have to. Everyone knows who we are. Your siblings have reputations to protect. You're dragging us through the mud just because you didn't get your way. You mean just because I wasn't invited? I asked dryly. Or are we still pretending that didn't happen? Silence. Do you know what Marcus said? He might lose a gig over this. Melody says people are calling her fake online. So you're saying people believe me? More silence. Then she hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I felt something colder. Like I'd just been told for the 100th time that their image mattered more than me. By lunchtime, the group messages started blowing up. Melody sent a novel-length rant about how she'd always supported me, which was hilarious considering she once told a boyfriend I was too emotionally flat to be funny. Marcus sent a voice memo that sounded like corporate damage control. I think it's really toxic that you're bringing family drama into your brand. You've always struggled with boundaries. Boundaries? Like the one that said I shouldn't attend a retreat with 118 people because I took up too much space. A cousin chimed in to say I was probably exaggerating. It was likely just a misunderstanding. Like I'd misread an invitation that went to literally everyone but me. One aunt said she was praying for me. Another said I'd broken Mom's heart. Part of me wanted to explain, to clarify, to say I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But they weren't asking for clarification. They were demanding silence. Demanding I play the quiet middle child who absorbs the hit and keeps the peace. I was done being quiet. That night I filmed a video. Not comedy, not a performance. Just me, sitting on my couch in a hoodie, holding a mug I wasn't drinking from. Hi, I said to the camera. Some of you have seen my latest set, and apparently it's upset some people. I paused, took a breath. Here's the thing. If your family tells you your jokes aren't funny for 20 years, and then one night hundreds of strangers laugh until they cry, you're allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to heal however you need to. I looked directly into the lens. I used to think I was the least funny person in the world because my family said so. Then I stepped on stage and people laughed with me for me. And I realized I wasn't unfunny. I just wasn't their kind of funny. And maybe that's okay. I leaned forward slightly. Also, if you throw a 118-person retreat and tell your daughter there's no space for her, maybe don't act shocked when she mentions it publicly. I posted the video at midnight, closed my laptop, and went to bed. For the first time in years, I didn't brace for someone else's reaction. I just existed. The video didn't just go viral. It detonated. By noon, 300,000 views. By evening, I was trending under #SageSaidIt. By morning, 500,000 views and climbing. That's when they showed up at my door. I opened it to find Mom, Dad, and Marcus standing on my porch like the world's most dysfunctional welcoming committee. You need to take it down, Dad said without preamble. His face was red. Mom was vibrating with barely contained rage. Marcus stood with his arms crossed like a bouncer at a preschool. You've humiliated this family, Mom hissed. You made us a joke. I didn't make you a joke, I said, calm as still water. You did that. I just put it in a punchline. Marcus stepped forward. You can't post things like this without consequences. It's defamatory. Funny how you didn't mind when I invited you to my shows and nobody came, I replied. Now suddenly you're subscribers. We came to reason with you, Dad said, glancing nervously at the neighbor's yard. Can we come in? No, I said flatly. And heads up, if you start yelling, I'll film you and post that too. They blinked like I'd pulled a weapon. You're threatening your own family? Mom gasped. I'm protecting myself from the same people who excluded me from a 118-person retreat and then got mad when I mentioned it. Marcus muttered something under his breath. I raised my phone and opened the camera app. They backed away like I was holding a live grenade. Bye now, I said and shut the door. I watched through the peephole as they stood there for another minute. Mom looked like she wanted to scream. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear. Marcus looked like he wanted to sue someone, which, as it turned out, was prophetic. 3 days later, I received what can only be described as the world's most pathetic legal threat. Typed in Times New Roman with weird spacing and more typos than a phishing scam, the subject line read, "Urgent Family Concern." It was from Marcus. Apparently, he'd decided to draft a cease and desist letter demanding I take down the video immediately or face legal repercussions for deformation of character. Deformation, not defamation. Deformation. To be clear, Marcus does have a law degree in international trade law. He currently works in corporate compliance for a shipping company. The most aggressive thing he's ever litigated is probably a broken office chair warranty. I didn't respond to the letter. I made a video instead. I didn't show the actual document or name him directly. I just read a completely fictional cease and desist letter with comical typos and added dramatic music for effect. I've been asked to remove my video, I said in voiceover, because apparently pointing out that I wasn't invited to my own family's retreat is now a federal crime. Somewhere, the First Amendment is weeping. The video went up on Thursday. By Friday, 900,000 views and 3 interview requests. People loved the deadpan delivery and the fake signature I read aloud. Respectfully yours, Marcus the Enforcer. But here's where the story takes a turn that still gives me chills. That weekend, I made a decision that would destroy everything they'd built. I blocked them. All of them. Every single family member. I'd held on to hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would reach out and say, "Hey, we messed up," or, "I see you now." But the messages were all about damage control. About optics. About embarrassment. No one said sorry. No one asked how I felt. So I gave them the silence they'd never earned but definitely deserved. Group chats, exited. Facebook blocked. Instagram archived. I even scrubbed every shared playlist from Spotify, erasing 26 years of forced musical connection. Mom sent one final message before the block went into effect. You've made a laughingstock of your own family. I hope you're proud. I wasn't proud exactly. But I wasn't ashamed either. I was free. What happened next was like watching a controlled demolition in slow motion. The fallout was immediate and devastating. My siblings, who'd built their musical careers on the family brand, started losing contracts. Apparently, people didn't want to associate with the family being dragged through the digital mud. Ironically, they also started getting podcast invitations. Every minor influencer with a show called Let's Talk About It or Raw and Real wanted them on to discuss growing up with Sage. Some accepted. They didn't use my name directly, but when your brother goes on a podcast called Family First and says, "Some people just thrive on playing the victim," it's not exactly a mystery. Meanwhile, YouTubers did what they do best. They investigated. Someone found Mom's Facebook. Another identified the resort from a cousin's tagged photo. Soon, creators were showing up at the family home asking for comment. 2 weeks later, my parents sold the house. The official reason was downsizing, but we both knew better. They moved 3 towns over quietly. Melody deleted all her social media. Aria posted a vague statement about taking a break from public life. Marcus apparently considered legal action against several YouTubers, but was advised that truth is a pretty solid defense. Me, I didn't say another word about them. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I didn't throw a victory party. I just kept making content. Not about them, at least not directly. Just stories, observations, the kind of things that made people feel seen. When I read the comments, I saw something I'd never gotten growing up. Relatable. Thanks for saying what I couldn't. I thought I was the only one. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. I wasn't unwanted. I wasn't a failed joke. I was just Sage. And somehow that was enough. Fast forward 1 year. I'm still no contact with my family, and honestly, I don't miss the chaos. I've got real friends now. People who laugh with me, not at me. People who see me. The comedy career took off in ways I never imagined. I quit my day job, started touring, booked my first theater show. For the first time, I wake up excited about what I do. People come up after shows and say, "I thought it was just me." And I tell them what I learned. It never is. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. If speaking my truth was worth destroying theirs. If there was a kinder way to handle 26 years of being invisible. Then I remember that empty chair in the comedy club. The retreat photos with 118 people, and no space for me. The cease and desist letter with deformation instead of defamation. And I think about the thousands of comments from people saying I helped them find their voice. Helped them realize they weren't crazy. Helped them understand that sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who can't see you at all. Did I destroy my family? Maybe. Did they destroy themselves? Also maybe. All I know is this. For the first time in my life, I'm not apologizing for taking up space. I'm not shrinking to make room for people who never made room for me. And if that makes me the villain in their story, well, at least I'm finally the star of my own. The truth is, revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as finally telling your story. Sometimes it's as simple as refusing to disappear. Sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to be invisible anymore. And sometimes, when you stop trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for you, you discover you were never too much. You were just in the wrong room. Now I'm in the right room. On the right stage. With the right audience. And they're finally laughing with me.